Welcome to the deep dive. If you are pursuing some kind of extraordinary success, whether that's financial freedom or a huge career pivot, there's a really strong chance you're relying too much on just one person, yourself.
Yeah, we have this myth of the lone genius, right? The person coding an app in their garage or working 100-hour weeks all alone until they finally hit it big.
But the sources we're looking at today, especially from Keith Ferrazzi, they tell a completely different story. Isolation, it turns out, is rarely the path to a breakthrough.
So our mission in this deep dive is to fundamentally rewire how we all think about growth. We're going to explore why human connections aren't just, a nice extra. They are the single most potent currency you have.
It reminds me of that quote from Margaret Wheatley, "Nothing exists in isolation."
And that's the core principle, really, interdependence. It's about moving past that solo mindset and adopting a relationship-driven approach that's built on both authenticity and, importantly, strategy.
So it's less about what you know and more about the company you keep.
And how actively you cultivate it. Exactly.
Okay, so let's start with the moment that really shifted this whole perspective for the author himself. He gets into Harvard Business School.
Right, and you have to picture this. He's a liberal arts grad from a working-class steel town in Pennsylvania, and he's immediately hit with this just wall of pedigree.
It's that ultimate "I don't belong here" feeling.
Oh, totally. I mean, he's looking around at classmates who've already worked at places like McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. These weren't just company names. They represented this inherited access, a whole different understanding of how power works. He felt, well, completely overwhelmed.
A country boy competing with purebreds.
Exactly. But here's the thing. He had an insight that none of them had learned on Wall Street. He calls it the caddy yard insight.
Right, from long before HBS. When he used to caddy for these wealthy club members, he wasn't just carrying their clubs.
He was observing, he was watching, and what he saw was this massive, powerful club in action. These members were constantly using their web of friends, their associates, for mutual benefit.
Finding jobs for each other's kids.
Securing investments for new ideas, making critical introductions. Their wealth wasn't just, money in a bank account. It was this stored relational capital.
And that completely changed his definition of what it means to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
He came to this conclusion that poverty wasn't just a lack of money.
It was isolation. More than anything, it was isolation from the kinds of people and the kind of knowledge that could help you become more.
That's a huge mindset shift.
It's monumental. It means it matters less how brilliant you are or how much talent you have. I mean, those things are important, but they're not enough. The new rule of the game is you just can't get there alone. You have to actively join the club.
And the price of admission isn't money.
No. It's your commitment to connection.
Okay, so if that's the mindset, what's the operating philosophy behind it all? The sources boil it down to one single powerful word.
Generosity.
Generosity.
Yeah, but it has to be the kind of generosity that doesn't expect anything back right away. Ferrazzi learned this from his first mentor, a woman named Mrs. Poland. He didn't just caddy for her. He studied her game. He walked the course beforehand. He treated her success like it was his own.
And in return, she wasn't just a client who paid him. She became his champion. She introduced him to important people, opened doors for him. It was a reciprocity, but it came from a place of genuine care, not a transaction.
Right, but this is what keeps so many smart, driven people from doing the same thing. They make this fundamental error of keeping score.
And this is where that scarcity mindset comes in.
Yeah.
The story about Hollywood David is just a perfect example of this.
Oh, it's incredible. This entrepreneur in Santa Monica just flat out refused to introduce the author to an executive he knew.
And his reason was what?
He said, "I need to save that for myself."
Wow. I mean, that's the zero-sum game right there. He saw that introduction as a piece of a pie, and if he gave a slice away,
he'd have less for himself. Exactly. And if you hoard your social capital like that, thinking it's this limited thing, you stop using it. And then, well, eventually there's nothing left to hoard.
that is such a difficult psychological hurdle, isn't it?
It's
Especially for high achievers who are trained to optimize everything and minimize risk.
It's completely counterintuitive. The counter-argument is that relationships are like muscles, not pie. The more you work them, the stronger they get. Giving before you get is, well, it's everything. True connectors never, ever keep score.
So once you've got that generous mindset, you need a plan. You need to direct that energy. It's like the Cheshire Cat telling Alice, right?
Yeah.
You don't know where you're going.
Any road will get you there. You can't connect effectively if you don't know why you're connecting. And that means specific, written goals are non-negotiable. This is all confirmed by that famous Yale study from the class of 1953.
Right? They revisited the class 20 years later, and only 3% of the graduates had actually written down their specific goals and a plan.
And that 3% was earning 10 times as much as the other 97% of graduates combined.
Okay, but hang on. That number is staggering, but you have to ask the question, right? Is the act of writing it down some kind of magic? Or is it that those 3% are just the most disciplined, motivated people to begin with? Is it survivorship bias?
That's the critical question. And the source material kind of lands on.
Yeah.
It's a bit of both. But the act of writing forces a certain clarity. You can't connect your mission to a real person until you can articulate that mission perfectly.
It starts with finding what the book calls your blue flame.
Yeah, that convergence of your mission, your passion, and a really realistic look at your own abilities. Once you have that flame, you can build the engine around it. And that engine is the Networking Action Plan, or the NAP.
The NAP is the tool that turns that ambition into actual steps. It's a three-part plan. Part 1. Set clear written goals. A 3-year mission broken down into 1-year and 90-day chunks.
And they have to be specific, believable, and challenging. But part 2 is where the rubber meets the road. You have to connect those goals to the names of real flesh and blood people who can help you.
So not just, I need an investor, but...
No, it's, I need to talk to John Smith, who invested in a company like mine, and Jane Doe, who knows him.
And part 3 is figuring out the best way to actually reach those people. There's this great example of a woman named Jamie, a history PhD, who felt trapped in academia. She used this NIP process to pivot and eventually became a tenured history teacher at a great high school. It gives you direction.
So now you have the plan, you have the names, you need the skill set to actually execute. And that starts with what Ferrazzi calls the genius of audacity.
This comes straight from his father, a steel worker, whose motto was basically, it never hurts to ask. I mean, think about the story of him approaching the CEO of his company,
Alex McKenna,
to ask for a private school scholarship for his son.
And he got it. The man knew it was a huge ask, but the worst that could happen was they say no. It's like that other story, the one about the broken big wheel tricycle.
Right. His dad sees it in someone's trash, and instead of just taking it,
he walks up to the door and asks for it. He explains he wants to fix it for his son, and he walks away not just with the broken one, but with a second, better one, because his boldness just invited that generosity.
It really speaks to the psychological barrier we all have. Audacity, then, is about balancing two fears. The fear of embarrassment versus the fear of failure.
Right. If you risk nothing, if you're too scared to ask, you are literally guaranteed mediocrity. You have to choose to risk that brief moment of discomfort for a no.
But being bold doesn't mean being careless. The rule is very clear. Cold calls are for suckers. Every single interaction has to be a warm call.
Which means preparation. You have to do your homework. And there are 4 rules for this, illustrated perfectly when he was trying to meet Sony's Serge Del Grosso for his advergaming project.
Okay, rule 1.
Draft off a reference. You have to convey instant credibility. Mention a mutual contact. Find an alumni connection on Google or LinkedIn. Something to create an instant link.
Rule 2. State your value proposition. It can't be about you. It has to be about them. What problem of theirs can you solve?
Rule 3. Talk a little, say a lot, be quick, be convenient, be definitive. Don't say, maybe we could connect sometime. Say, I'm in town next Tuesday. How about lunch?
And rule 4. This one is fascinating from a psychological standpoint. Offer a compromise. Go big first.
Exactly. You ask for an hour-long meeting, knowing they'll probably say no, but then you immediately follow up with a much smaller request, like a 5-minute phone call. It's the door-in-the-face technique. They feel a social obligation to agree to the smaller request after turning down the big one.
And using that, he got the meeting in a week.
In a single week.
Okay, so audacity and warm calls get you in the door, but that's just the start. The real loyalty, the real connection is built over time. And that brings us to, well, the hammer and nails of networking. Follow-up.
You really can't overstate this. Good, consistent follow-up just by itself will put you ahead of 95% of your peers. Most people meet someone, exchange a business card, and then crickets. Nothing.
The discipline required here is the 12 to 24-hour rule.
Yes. You have to follow up within that window. Email, handwritten note, whatever. And the key is you have to include a specific detail from your conversation. A joke you shared, a business insight, a hobby they mentioned. That specificity locks you into their memory.
Now, when we talk about expanding networks, this is really powerful sociological idea, the strength of weak ties.
Yeah, this comes from a study by Mark Granovetter. We tend to focus all our energy on our close friends or strong ties, but the research shows that acquaintances, our weak ties, are often much more valuable for things like job leads.
And the logic there is, what? Your close friends all live in your same world.
Pretty much. They know what you know. But your acquaintances, they live in completely different social and professional circles. They have access to new information. That's why Granovetter found that 56% of people found jobs through personal connections, and it was those weak ties that were disproportionately responsible.
So the most efficient way to get access to a ton of weak ties is to connect with super connectors.
Exactly. These are people who know thousands of people across all these different diverse worlds,
And they tend to show up in specific jobs. Restaurateurs,
especially the ones who run those exclusive places. They're like social gatekeepers, headhunters, lobbyists, fundraisers, PR people.
politicians, journalists.
Right. Their entire job is to build and maintain bridges between otherwise disconnected worlds. Targeting them is the fastest way to exponentially grow your universe. So let's try to synthesize all this for you, the listener. We live in a world now where, lifetime employment with one company that's dead. We're all basically free agents.
And that stability, that loyalty and security that a corporation used to provide, that now has to come from your network.
Your relationships are the best, most credible expression of your personal brand, but connecting isn't some innate talent you're born with. It is a skill. It's learned, and it requires conscious effort and adaptation.
Part of that adaptation is learning to manage your communication style, right? The source mentions the Johari window.
Yeah, which is just a model for understanding your relationship with yourself and with other people. It has 4 quadrants, but the goal is to expand the open area, the things known to both you and the other person, and shrink your blind spot.
In other words, you have to mirror and adjust your style to make the other person feel comfortable and understood. It keeps the connection going.
And if you doubt that this can really change your path, just remember the story of Virginia Fields, a hairdresser. At age 40, she decides she wants to be an engineer.
It seems impossible.
Totally. But she relied on her self-assessment, her mission, and a growing network to push through. And she did it, became a successful engineer.
So the club isn't exclusive. It's not just for people born with a silver spoon. It's open to anyone who shows up with a generous heart and a focused, realistic plan. You don't ask to get in with your resume. You ask to get in by being useful.
Which leaves the biggest question for you. It's not if you can connect, but who are you going to reach out to today to start expanding your universe?